Middle-aged rancher hadn't spoken to women in years, until 3 Apache women begged him to take them in. The ranch sat far away from the main road, hidden behind long stretches of dry land and quiet hills. Most people did not even know it existed. Those who did had not visited in years. At the center of that land lived a middle-aged man named Thomas. He was known as a rancher, but to many he was more like a shadow, someone who worked, survived, and disappeared into silence again. Thomas woke up every day before sunrise. The alarm clock beside his bed had stopped working years ago, but he no longer needed it. His body knew the time. He would sit up slowly, listening to the stillness around him. No voices, no footsteps. Only the soft sound of wind brushing against the wooden walls of his small house. That silence had become normal to him. In fact, it felt safer than noise. He dressed in the same way every morning, old jeans, a worn shirt, boots that had seen better days. He washed his face with cold water, stared at his reflection for a moment, then turned away. He did not like looking at himself for too long. The mirror often brought back thoughts he worked hard to forget. Outside, the land waited for him. The animals needed care. The fences needed checking. The earth demanded attention. Thomas preferred this kind of responsibility. Animals did not ask personal questions. The land did not judge him. Everything followed simple rules: work hard, stay quiet, survive. Years ago, Thomas had been different. He once laughed easily. He once spoke freely. He once shared meals and stories with others, but life had taken turns he never expected. Loss came slowly at first, then all at once. When the pain became too heavy, he did not fight it. Instead, he stepped back from the world. He stopped visiting town. He stopped answering letters. Eventually, he stopped speaking unless it was absolutely necessary. Conversations felt risky. Words felt dangerous. Silence felt controlled. People in nearby towns whispered about him sometimes. Some said he was unfriendly. Some said he was strange. Others said he carried anger. None of them truly knew the truth. Thomas was not angry. He was tired of hoping, tired of remembering, tired of losing. Women, especially, reminded him of everything he had lost. Not because of blame, but because of memory. Long ago, he had loved deeply. That love had shaped him and then shattered him. After that, speaking to women felt like opening a door he had locked for survival. So he kept that door closed for years. His days followed a strict pattern: morning work, midday rest, afternoon repairs, evening meals alone at the small wooden table. He cooked simple food, ate quietly, and cleaned up without delay. At night, he sat on the porch sometimes, watching the sky darken. The stars above the ranch were bright, untouched by city lights. He often wondered how something so beautiful could exist in a world that had hurt him so deeply. Sometimes memories came without warning. A voice, a smile, a moment from long ago. When that happened, Thomas would stand up, shake his head, and return inside. He believed that memories were like wild animals. If you fed them, they would never leave. The ranch itself reflected his inner world, strong but worn, useful but lonely. The house had only what he needed: no decorations, no pictures on the walls. The past was packed away in boxes he never opened. Years passed like this. Seasons changed. Summers burned the land. Winters hardened it. Thomas aged quietly without milestones or celebrations. Birthdays came and went unnoticed. He did not mark time by years anymore, only by harvests and repairs. There were moments, rare ones, when he wondered what life might have been if he had chosen differently, if he had stayed connected, if he had forgiven himself sooner. But those thoughts never lasted long. Regret was another door he refused to open. To Thomas, the ranch was more than a workplace. It was a shield. Out there, he did not have to explain himself. He did not have to be kind or cruel. He simply existed. He told himself that this was enough. Then one evening, something shifted. The sun was already low when Thomas finished repairing a broken fence near the far edge of his land. His body ached, but he welcomed the feeling. Physical pain was easier to manage than emotional weight. He loaded his tools and began walking back toward the house. That was when he noticed movement near the dirt path that led to the main gate. At first, He thought it was an animal. Maybe a deer or a stray horse. He slowed his steps, scanning the area carefully. The land was usually empty at this hour. Visitors were rare, almost impossible. As he moved closer, he realized it was not an animal. It was people. 3 figures stood near the gate, still and unsure. As the light faded, he could see that they were women. They stood close together as if drawing strength from one another. Their posture showed caution, not threat. Thomas stopped walking. His first instinct was to turn around, to return to the comfort of routine. Visitors meant conversation. Conversation meant emotion. Emotion meant risk. He stood there for a long moment, his heart beating louder than it had in years. The women did not move closer. They did not shout. They simply waited. Something about that patience unsettled him. He had not spoken to a woman in many years, not since the life he buried behind silence. His mind raced with reasons to leave. It was late. He was tired. He did not owe anyone anything, and yet his feet did not move. The wind carried a faint sound, soft voices, quiet and careful, not demanding, not aggressive. Just human. For the first time in years, Thomas felt something he could not easily name. It was not fear exactly. It was not anger. It was a feeling he had avoided for a long time. Responsibility. He reminded himself that the ranch had always been his refuge, but it was also part of a larger world. A world where people sometimes needed help. A world he had turned his back on, but one that had not fully disappeared. As he stood there, memories stirred, times when someone had opened a door for him, even when it was uncomfortable. Times when kindness had come unexpectedly. Those memories were dangerous, but they were also powerful. Thomas took a slow breath and began walking again, each step heavier than the last. He did not know what the women wanted. He did not know what would happen next. He only knew that whatever choice he made in the next few minutes would break years of silence. The rancher who had lived untouched by human connection for so long was about to face the world again, whether he was ready or not. And with that quiet step forward, the silence that had defined his life began to crack. Thomas slowed his steps as he came closer to the gate. The 3 women noticed him immediately. Their quiet voices stopped, and all of them turned toward him at once. None of them stepped forward. None of them stepped back. They simply waited as if unsure what kind of man stood before them. The light was fading, but Thomas could see their faces clearly enough. They looked tired. Not just from walking, but from carrying something heavy inside. Their clothes were dusty, their hair pulled back in simple styles. There was no sign of danger about them, only caution and need. Thomas cleared his throat. The sound surprised even him. His voice felt unused, rough, almost foreign. "What do you want?" he asked. The words came out low and careful. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the woman standing in the middle took a small step forward. Her movements were slow and respectful, as if she did not want to scare him. "We are sorry to bother you," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was strain beneath it. "We were told there was a ranch here. We were hoping you might help us for a short time." Not anymore. He had trained himself to live without needing others and without being needed. "Help how?" he asked. The woman hesitated, then spoke honestly. "We need a safe place to stay, just for a little while. We don't want trouble." Thomas looked past them toward the open land beyond the gate. His mind worked quickly, listing reasons to say no. He lived alone. He was not prepared. He did not know them. It would change everything. "I don't take people in," he said flatly. The women did not argue. They did not beg. That surprised him. "We understand," the middle woman replied. "We had to ask." "How long have you been walking?" he asked before he could stop himself. The question hung in the air. He had not planned to ask anything more. "Since early morning," the woman said softly. Thomas swallowed. He remembered days like that. Long days with nowhere to go, days when the body moved but the spirit dragged behind. "Why here?" he asked. Another pause. Then the woman said, "Someone said you were quiet, that you kept to yourself, that you wouldn't harm us." He felt trapped between the man he had become and the man he once was. "I can't promise anything," he said finally. "I don't run a shelter." "You can stay in the old storage building," he said. It's dry, that's all." He listened as their footsteps fell into line behind him, soft but steady. The storage building was old but solid. Thomas opened the door and stepped aside. "There's water inside," he said. "Blankets too. I'll bring food later." Unsettled, broken, he moved through his usual routine, but his hands shook slightly as he cooked. He prepared more food than normal without thinking about it. When it was ready, he placed it on a tray and carried it back toward the storage building. The women sat on the floor, talking quietly. They stopped when they saw him. "Eat," he said, setting the tray down. "No need to talk." Silence returned, but it was not uncomfortable. It was thoughtful. Later that night, Thomas returned to his house. Sleep did not come easily. Every sound outside caught his attention. He told himself it was about safety, but deep down he knew it was about presence. He was no longer alone. Morning came slowly. Thomas rose early as always. When he stepped outside, he saw the women already awake, sitting quietly near the building. "You're up early," he said. "Habit," Lena replied. He nodded. Habits were something he understood. Over breakfast, conversation began in small pieces. Not forced, not deep, just enough. They told him they were Apache women traveling together for support. Life had not been easy, but they were strong. They did not speak badly of anyone. They spoke carefully, choosing words that built bridges, not walls. Thomas listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, it was brief. But slowly something changed. His words came a little easier. His shoulders relaxed. As the day went on, he showed them where they could get water, where they should not wander. The ranch felt different with voices moving through it. Not loud, just alive. That evening, as the sun set again, Thomas realized something had shifted inside him. He was still cautious, still guarded, but the wall he had built was no longer solid stone. It had cracks now, and through those cracks something warm was trying to return. Morning light spread softly across the ranch, touching the land with a gentle warmth. Thomas stood outside his house, holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. He watched the horizon, but his thoughts were not on the weather or the work waiting for him. They were on the people now sharing his land. He was not used to that feeling. From the storage building, he heard quiet movement. The women were awake. They always were, just like him. That small similarity made him feel less uneasy, though he did not fully understand why. He cleared his throat and walked toward them. "There's work to do today," he said, keeping his voice steady. "You don't have to help, but if you want to stay busy, I won't stop you." Sitting and waiting makes the mind heavy. That respect mattered more to him than they could know. As the hours passed, the ranch felt different, not louder, not crowded, just shared. The sound of footsteps, the soft exchange of words, the presence of others moving with purpose. It reminded Thomas of a time long ago before silence became his shield. During a short break, they sat under the shade of a tree. No one spoke at first. The wind moved through the grass and birds called out in the distance. "You built all this yourself?" one of the women asked gently. Thomas nodded. "Over time." "You don't talk much." In the evenings, they shared meals, simple food, simple moments. Sometimes there was conversation. Sometimes there was only quiet eating and the sound of cutlery on plates. Thomas found that he did not rush through meals anymore. He listened, even when no one spoke. One night after dinner, Lena asked, "Do you mind if we tell you why we were traveling?" Personal stories were dangerous. They opened doors that could not always be closed again. "If you want," he said finally. They spoke slowly, each woman adding pieces when she felt ready. They talked about hard times, about choices made out of need, about walking forward even when the path was unclear. They did not blame. They did not complain. They spoke with honesty and strength. Thomas listened, truly listened. He did not interrupt. He did not look away. Their words stirred something deep inside him. When they finished, there was a long silence. "You didn't have to tell me," he said. "We wanted to," Lena replied. "You gave us space. That matters." That night he slept better than he had in years. The next morning, Thomas surprised himself by asking a question. "Why Apache women?" he asked carefully. "Why together?" As the week went on, small changes appeared in him. He spoke a little more. He listened with less tension. He even laughed once, a short sound that startled everyone, including himself. "You laughed," one woman said, smiling. Thomas shook his head. "Must have been the wind." Everyone rushed for cover. In the storage building, the sound of rain filled the air, steady and loud. As they waited, one of the women began humming a tune. It was calm and steady, matching the rhythm of the rain. The others joined in quietly. Thomas leaned against the wall, eyes closed. The sound wrapped around him, gentle and grounding. It reminded him of something he could not fully remember, only feel. When the storm passed, the world smelled fresh, clean. "Thank you," Thomas said without thinking. "For what?" Lena asked. "For that." He did not look at everything. He did not need to. He simply acknowledged that the past existed and that it did not own him anymore. The women noticed the change, though they did not comment. They treated him the same, with patience and respect. One night, as the stars filled the sky, Thomas sat on the porch with them. No one spoke. They did not need to. For the first time in many years, the silence did not feel empty. It felt full. The days began to feel lighter, even though the work on the ranch stayed the same. Thomas still woke before sunrise. He still fed the animals, checked the fences, and walked the land he knew so well. But now, there was something different in the air. The ranch no longer felt like a place frozen in time. It felt alive. The women did not push him to change. They did not ask questions he was not ready to answer. They simply lived alongside him, sharing space with quiet respect. That gentle presence did something Thomas had not expected. It made him reflect. One morning, while repairing a broken gate, Thomas felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. He stopped and leaned against the fence, breathing slowly. In the past, he would have ignored it and kept working. Pain was something to endure alone. But this time, one of the women noticed. "You should rest," she said calmly. "I'm fine," Thomas replied out of habit. She did not argue. She simply brought him water and placed it nearby, just in case. Thomas noticed small signs, bags being organized, clothes folded, longer looks toward the road. He felt a strange tightness in his chest. He had known this moment would come. Nothing stays forever. That evening, as they shared dinner, Lena spoke gently. "We will be leaving soon." We didn't want to take more than what was given. He wondered if it would return to that same weight after they left. The next morning, the women stood near the gate, ready to go. The land was still. The sky was clear. Thomas walked with them, hands in his pockets. "You'll be all right?" he asked. Lena smiled softly. "Yes, we always are." It was a promise. They thanked him one last time, not with dramatic words, but with simple sincerity. Then they turned and began walking down the dirt path, their figures slowly blending into the wide land. Thomas stood there for a long time after they disappeared from view. The ranch felt quiet again, but it was not the same silence. Days passed. Thomas returned to his routine, but he noticed changes in himself. He cooked better meals. He repaired things he had ignored for years. He sat on the porch more often, not to escape the world, but to feel part of it. One afternoon, he drove into town. He had not planned to. His body simply turned the wheel without resistance. In the store, people looked at him with surprise, then curiosity. He nodded politely. He even spoke a few words. "Nice weather," someone said. "Yes," Thomas replied, "it is." He only needed to allow space for others the way he once needed space himself. The ranch would always be his home. Quiet, strong, honest. But now it was no longer closed, and that was enough.